Dude,
I get it.
So much for coming, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Man. Honestly, like
I love it.
We have out of the few people we've had on, like I told you are one of the like my most anticipated people. I'm like, we have to get him on. Genuinely. Here's the thing. I don't think like, and I know we've talked about this, but like I feel like you're one of those people that like you carry so much wisdom, and I think you walk in wisdom, and people around you know you walk in wisdom. But I feel like you're like a sleeper wisdom carrier. Like you almost are one of those people that like have so much wisdom, and it's like amazing how much you walk in. And I feel like there's some people where it's like because they have like this crazy following or this big thing. It's like like, oh, that's that person to come in, but like you are genuinely like you walk in crazy wisdom, and it's like
thank you.
It's awesome, dude. I appreciate it a ton, even in my own life. So, but Rory, you're a part of where are you at church? Where are you youth pastoring? Where are you
youth pastoring up in Redding, California at Bethel Church?
Awesome.
Which includes the junior high and high school.
Okay.
So 6th graders all the way up to 12th grade.
Yeah, and you've been doing that for how long?
I've been in the youth group since 2010, leading. I have just recently taken over both of them in 2021.
Yeah.
So that was when we started doing both, and before that was just the high school pastor.
Gotcha. Okay.
So kind of progressed.
It's kind of a weird because we do that. We do both.
Yeah.
How do you feel like because I've never ran a youth group with just one. Like I've always known doing junior high and high school, and we do it mixed.
Oh,
we don't
do
do split.
We do separate.
So I love that you do that. We haven't taken the step yet.
We only took that step in 2018.
I think I came to when you guys.
Yes.
It might have been your first or your like second time doing it, and you were like, because you literally. I came up and I was like, we're doing this. I don't know. It's hard because you're talking to 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds.
Yes.
It's such a hard.
The gap.
Dude.
I found that when they're together, all we had were 8th, 9th, and 10th graders.
Yeah.
That was our problem.
Yeah.
We actually didn't have any 6th or 7th graders because parents, for some reason, were convinced that a 6th grader and a 12th grader were going to date. Biggest fear of parents is that.
Interesting.
And I constantly had to be like, I promise you, the older kids think your kids are very young.
Yeah.
And the younger 100%. Kids, and they're just scared that there's going to be dating or bad influence. And I'm like, they're so segregated in our youth group. It's painful.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I feel like that's even in high school. You have freshmen, sophomore, junior.
Yes.
And a lot of times they are
even 9th through 12th graders are very separate.
Yep. 100%. And it looks like almost like seniors look down, like upperclassmen look down on freshmen, and then freshmen are like, I wish one day I would be an upperclassman. So, but that was the first, literally when I first came, I was like, this is amazing. And you had just switched it to, it's same day.
Same day.
You do like, is it, 5 o'clock? You start at 5 and then you do.
Yeah, so we do 5:15. We have our team start setting up. We only do probably 20 minutes of setup for the whole campus. So we have had to really dial in our setup because we're a church where every room is used for multiple things.
Yep.
And so, yes, we don't have a youth room.
I
wish we had a youth room. We don't have a youth room. So
Yet.
We had,
Speaking of that,
come on. So we do 20 minutes of setup. We do a pre-service huddle with our junior high team.
Yeah.
And then junior hires are on from 6 to 7:30. And that's 30 minutes of pre-hangs and then an hour service. And then during that time of their service, high schoolers are checking in and our high school team is coming. So we rotate these two groups. They never see each other, but 15 minutes is our rotation. That's all we get.
How much of your junior high team is on your high school team?
None. So we have a specific junior high team and then a specific high school team. That's awesome. Only people that cross are staff.
Do you feel like, because I know that was one of the things that our biggest issue running into us splitting was leaders, because I think it's so easy for everyone wants to be in high school ministry, and everyone feels called to high
crazy.
School.
Surprisingly, I don't find that.
Really?
Not one person that has ever joined our junior high team has felt called to high school. Every one of them has felt called to junior high.
Really?
Yeah. So we started, because that was the biggest concern when we were going to. Everyone's like, oh, for sure, everyone's going to feel high school. And I was like,
yeah.
And me and my wife in Utah, you were junior high pastors.
Yeah.
At the church that we were, that under Tom, it was just volunteer, but we would take the junior hires and we formed this whole thing. And I was like, I don't think everyone feels called to high school. And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, I have met many people that love the junior high age before they start having to go into the deeper issues of high school.
Totally.
And as we started clarifying what that meant, way easier to get leaders. So all of the whole team is actually, like they have told me, I feel called to junior high. I think there's only been one person ever where they said, I could go either way. I love high schoolers. And I was one that said, man, as I've gotten to know you, I feel like you would do great in junior high. And they go, man, I love that. Yeah, let's do it.
Dang.
And they've thrived. But like, so it has only been, I always let a person tell me where they feel they fit.
Yeah.
And then I go with it.
That is awesome.
So
yeah, I feel
there's
like
probably more out there than you know.
No, 100%. Well, and I do know, like, we've not had a junior high person come in to take over junior high. I kept, like, when I first got here, I was expecting, like, junior high person will come in and be like, I'm on fire for junior high. I'm taking on junior high.
Okay, so yeah, no, me and my wife have definitely, when junior high, when we expanded, so we didn't split, that was a key. First thing is language.
Yeah.
No splitting. It took us a while to go, we're expanding to junior high and high school. But junior hires, when me and my wife took it over in 2021, we brought in a different lens of junior high that changed how we got junior high leaders. And kind of for me, whenever I describe it to leaders, I go, if you want to know where you fit junior high, there's a bunch of opportunity to sow a bunch of seeds. They're going to jump over chairs. They're squirrely. They play tag and worship. They're all over. Their attention span is very limited. If you know that going in, you're not going to get frustrated. Mm-hmm. But you're sowing a lot of seeds, and you also can pull out a lot of weeds before they get really big. Yeah. So you almost can like catch beliefs that you're like, ooh, that could turn into something really big in high school, or we can curve it in junior high. And wow. So many of our junior hires, like they'll have a moment of breakdown where something's going on, and we curve so much pain in high school because they're just so flexible and they don't really know yet, and they haven't formed those strong, independent, ideas.
Yeah, totally.
So the moment we started describing that, and I was like, does everybody see how you can, like, this is what you do in junior high? It was like we started getting people that are like, that's what I want to do. I want to be the one that like prophesies and declares and finds the good and encourages. And I don't always want to have like, oh my gosh, what'd you do this weekend? Yeah. What party did you go to? I thought we were doing okay. Wait, last week you were like so on fire. How did one weekend go? And that's high school. Like high school, you're like, wow, you were doing really good. And then now you're not.
Within a week.
Like,
yeah. Wow.
Totally. I don't know what just happened, So that has helped us get the right people to where we have a lot of amazing junior high leaders that's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. They're like, I love encouraging kids and their identity. Yeah. I don't love having those one-on-one conversations that go really deep always. Mm. And so you kind of find different people. And then so in junior high team, you will find we have maybe they're a little more bubbly. Mm. They're a little more like hands-on, like, yeah. And then in high school, way more of my more serious, deep, let's go and have a coffee and have a conversation. So even the teams play out different. Totally. So you can kind of see it. Yeah. It has helped a lot. And
it's needed. Like it really is. Because they're different. They're totally different groups. And I think I almost like, and I know we've talked about this actually before, it's like the fear of failure, or the fear of like doing something. I know we actually talked, this is a while ago, but I asked you about small groups because I was like, hey, we're trying to do small groups. And the only reason we haven't started doing small groups yet is because I'm so scared that we're going to start it, it's going to fail, and I'm going to like have to basically go out and say, sorry, we tried, but we can't. And you stop me and you're like, ask me how many times we tried to do small groups. How many times? And you're like, you're on like 8 or something like that. You were like,
we have tried so many different models of small groups.
And you're like, we are like, it was the one you were on where like you said, I think we're on the one that is like going to be the one that we're kind of more on, that is more working for us. But you're like, why in the world would you not do something if it's something that God can move powerfully in? Why wouldn't you just do it and not feel like weird that you're telling everyone like, oh yeah, that we tried it, didn't work, we'll try again next month or a month from now or whatever.
I think a lot of times with in youth ministry, and I think it's just in leadership, and it's something I have tried my best to keep in front of me, even as I get more responsibility and grow in leadership, is the more high stakes I make something, the less I accomplish. And if I make anything high stakes and I make anything feel bigger than it is because of an insecurity in me or a fear that it's not going to work, so I have to hype it up in my own mind, I set myself up to not take as many risks. I set myself up to live a mundane leadership life. And I go, man, why am I not trying stuff?
Yeah.
And instead, I always think, I don't need to make this bigger than it is. And that's hard because you almost, if you're not confident as a leader in just, I'm okay if this works or doesn't work, I'm actually okay. If I'm not okay, I hype it up and I'm like, I need everybody to get on the same page and guys, this is going to be huge. And oh my God. And really you're going, I'm so scared this isn't working. So I'm overinflating this. I'm making this event sound like it's the next greatest thing that's ever going to happen. And if you're not there, or if you're not at the front, you're going to miss something, and almost using a fear of missing out to satisfy our own insecurities.
Yeah.
As a leader,
Totally.
Instead of just going, or just start something.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to work perfect right away, but you didn't start with a huge, like, I don't know where that came from, but there's somewhere in leadership, it was told, hey, make sure that if you're going to cast vision, you make it so big and so incredible and so exacerbate. I think that's the word, exacerbate. Like too good to be true that everybody wants to show up, and then everyone's let down. And you do that 3 or 4 times and you stop having people follow you. And everyone's like, I don't want to do what you're saying because I'm exhausted. The last time you said this worked, it did not work. The last time that we even tried to share testimonies, we couldn't actually be honest because we all knew that it didn't work as well. But we all were like, hey, one soul is worth it. I absolutely, I get it. I know one soul is worth it. When we throw a bunch of time and resources into something and we walk away and say, but one kid got connected. One kid met Jesus. At that moment, I go, that is me not being able to, as a leader, say, wow, something's off.
Totally. Yep.
Because that one kid, guess what? They would have accepted Jesus without all of this. They would have come. Guess what? That one kid with one relational talk would have probably met God outside of all of this money, all of this resource, all of this energy. Same thing would have happened.
No, 100%.
And so I try to really, that is where this whole, like, if I can lower the stakes and just go, I don't care if I fail. We try so many more things. It was even last night. So last night we had
So you guys do youth Wednesdays.
We do youth on Wednesdays. So last night we did a senior takeover. We started this a couple of years ago where the whole night the seniors get to take over the whole service, and they do everything. And they open, they close, worship, they do 5 minutes of fire, they do ministry time. It's kind of a fun thing where I get to see
where they're at.
Like what have we done? And I kind of have a rule where I do not ask what they're going to do. I don't want to know.
Scary rule.
I don't want to know. Only thing I do is I help them. With all of them we meet and I say, hey, what is on your heart? What do you want to do? And they tell me, and I put them in the order of service, and I don't ask them anything. I don't tell them how to do something. I'm like, you either caught it and we're about to see it, or we did not do you justice. And so we get into the service, and it stresses some of our leaders out. I will say it stresses. I had a leader come up to me right before service, and she's like, hey, Rory, so are you going to vet through, like, do you want to hear what they're about to do on stage or anything? And I was like, nah, I don't care. And she goes, what, like, you know who's getting on stage? I said, I know. And she was like, so you don't want to hear anything that they're going to say? And I go, well, let's think of the worst thing that could happen. They get on stage and say, God isn't real. We still could overcome that. And she kind of looked at me and she was like, okay. And I said, and I don't think any of them are going to say that. So I guess we're okay. Like I guess that's the worst thing I can think of. I guess they're okay. And sure enough, so every time a kid came, I'm like, oh, I don't actually care what you're going to do. Just go and be free. If you want to take a risk in the moment, take the risk. You don't have to ask me. You're leading the service. I'm not.
Yeah, that's so good.
I'm following you. It was so powerful. So powerful. Like crazier than I would have ever imagined. Every year it gets better. Like, I mean, crazy testimonies, crazy revelation, things that they shared that they probably would have never shared if I would have set the stage.
Yeah.
Instead, I just let them be. And you can see then the culture at work. You're like, oh, wow. I walked away and I was like, wow, we are producing the type of student I want to produce. I didn't manufacture any of that. I was not influencing it.
Yeah.
There wasn't my leadership at the very end making sure everything went well. And oh, wow. I went, hey, if we actually are creating those students, I should have nothing to worry about. And sure enough, 16, 17 students took the stage throughout the night. And it was so profoundly powerful. So much ministry, so many, like, kids at the end, because of this one student shared a testimony breakthrough that she's never shared ever with anybody besides the leader that she had it with a year ago, and just openly weeping, sharing how much this encounter had changed her life, broke open the room where people are confessing stuff, to saying stuff that they'd never shared with people. And I'm like, I couldn't have told you to do that.
No.
But that's that fear of failure. Like, if you can justify it by going, oh, I want to be wise. I want to make sure that I, prep them well.
Right.
I'm like, no, you don't want to prep them well. You want to control what they're about to say and do. And you want to just say, hey, I would do it this way. And instead I was like, I don't actually care what you do.
Yeah.
I even had one of the students, it's so funny, two of them did transition of worship, because I assigned one and then the other one was like, I have a prophetic act. And I was like, great. And he kind of was like, I was like, oh, I don't need to know what it is. And he was like, okay. I'm like, just get up there and do it. And he's like, I'm going to do something. I said, I don't care. Whatever you want us to do, I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
And then he asked me to do something. He's like, hey, I really feel like you're supposed to lead some part. I was like, great, I'll lead whatever you want. And everyone's like, what? I was like, I'm following him.
Yeah.
I gave him the mic. That's really hard to do.
Oh yeah.
Because as a leader, you almost want to like stay the leader, and you forget, like, as if I'm going to raise up powerful students that know how to lead, I have to defer my leadership to them.
Yeah.
And allow them to lead me.
Yeah.
So that they feel it. And they're like, oh, I can lead Rory.
Yeah.
That's a big moment.
Totally.
That I trust you enough that I'm like, yeah, if you want me to do that, absolutely. You want us to get on our knees? I'll get on my knees. What do you want me to do? And that's really hard for people, especially if you fear failure. Yeah. Because you don't let people risk and try stuff. You always have to control it. And control has stolen so much of my life that I've actively worked to get it out of my life.
Yeah. That's so good. Dang, that's so good.
So,
yeah, I feel like that, it's just like almost even like the religiousness of us, like being in church and what you've grown up in, like all of us, like, even doesn't mean it's a bad church. It's just like, there's certain things that we just grow up in without even realizing it.
Yes.
So then you get into leadership. Like, we've had people, I tell my leader, I tell all my leaders, like, please, me being a good leader looks like you being able to come to me with anything, even if that's you saying, hey, I think you handled this situation wrong. And me being able to say, like, out of actually being able to humble myself and step back and go, like, did I? You know what? You're right. I did. I probably shouldn't have done that. And actually be able to hear from them. And so
it's leadership is caught, not taught. Everybody wants to teach stuff right now. And I'm like, it's not teachable. Yeah. You have to catch it. Yep. And that's what is why right now all of where everything's moving towards e-courses, read this book, join this, be on a Zoom call once a month, and that's going to change your leadership. And I'm like, you're going to learn tools, but it doesn't change you, because when you watch somebody and experience a leader, that's what changes it. You're like, oh, wow, how you just did that impacted my life more than a book ever could.
100%. Yep.
And then how you didn't do that marked what I go, ooh, I don't want to do that as a leader, because I just experienced what that feels like. Yep. I didn't like that. 100%. As how most of my leadership would be like, oh, how have you grown as a leader? I'm like, I read books. Yeah, I do that. But I think to myself, how do I want to be led? Yeah. And then I ask people, how am I leading? And then I have to be okay with what they say and not defensive. Again, that insecurity killer. Yep. You have to just be okay with like what you're not good at and then what you are good at, and you have to own it. Yep. If you're a youth pastor or a leader listening, own your insecurity and just get over it. And so I will tell you guys my greatest insecurity so that people know that I'm a real person. And I think that I think leaders, no one talks real, which makes everyone feel like they have to put on
it's a social media front
thing that I'm like, well, this is why your leadership isn't working, because you can't be honest about something that you need to be honest about and be okay with it and move on and go, yeah, this is it. So I only say this because my team asks me this stuff all the time. We're so vulnerable because if I'm going to ask you your greatest weakness or insecurity, I would have to go, oh, I have one too, which is where a lot of leaders don't want to say. Yeah. And then they make up some answer that I'm like, that is not. I
work too hard.
I work too hard. I care too much about people. No, you don't. That is not it. That's not your greatest weakness or insecurity. That's not what you go home at night and think, man, how am I going to grow out of this?
Right.
Yeah, I read through it.
No, it's all.
But for me, like this thing of insecurity, for me, my whole life, I have probably the greatest place I've had to grow in is learning how to communicate my internal world of emotions. It is so, I'm way introverted, actually. In my normal life, I am like, if I can be alone in silence for 5-6 hours, I'm thriving.
Yeah.
I don't think about like, wow, I missed people. Like, not a thought. I'm like, give me a book, moody, rainy day, cup of coffee. Like I'm doing well.
Yeah.
And because of that and my upbringing, my family did a lot of things amazingly well. Processing our emotions was maybe not one of the top of the list of things that we needed to figure out as a family.
Yeah.
So that's super hard. Well, that plays into then how you speak. So one of my greatest places where I am the weakest, that I probably have the greatest insecurity, is forming what I want to say to speak. Because it takes me 3 or 4 times as long as other people to actually get a thought out that makes sense. Yeah. So most of the stuff I say, I have been thinking about for months. Yeah. Like I'll be like, oh, this concept I started thinking about in January. Yeah. I started thinking about last year. And I bring it up 6 to 8 months later because it takes me that long to formulate, what do I actually think about this? Yeah. So speaking is hard for me. Yeah. So people are like, oh, you are a great communicator. Yeah. Wow, I love this. And I'm like, yep, it is one of the greatest weaknesses. My wife makes fun of me. I have 6 to 8 pages of notes. I have to write out things completely because I'm like, I don't know if I got it right. And she's over here, like, she'll think about it for like 24 hours. She's like, oh, I've had a thought pondering. And then we'll speak a message and people are like, that was incredible. No notes, just been pondering these verses. I'm like, yeah, you're pondering.
Thanks,
you know?
Oh, man.
And my wife is good at it. We have a guy on our team, Jordan Young, amazing at it. He can like communicate so effectively to get people to understand what he's saying. For me, I have to work extra hard at it. Yeah. Because I know this, I put in the work, but it doesn't change it. I don't get any better at it. Yeah. All I get better at is just going, oh, I take the time and I have to be okay with, man, I might never be the one that can just on the spot go. Yeah. I don't have that. And I either can get really weird about that or I just own it. Yeah. And for me, I've just chosen to own it. And that makes me be able to empower people that are better communicators than me consistently. I have people that's way better at communicating on a Wednesday night and way better at speaking on a Wednesday night than I do. I have a bent that people love, but I have better communicators. And that's a hard thing. Like there, you're like, ooh, I don't know if I could do that. And I'm like, if you want a powerful team and an amazing youth ministry, you get really good at knowing what am I really good at and what am I not really good at. What is my anointing and what am I not anointed in? Yeah. Like another thing I have to be aware of, this is funny, but I don't know what side of me where it comes from. I'm like a sword. This is all I got. I got a sword. I just cut. I prune. Every conversation, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm like, oh, I just think I'm pruning. And so I always laugh and I tell my wife, I'm like, plants can only be pruned, once in a while. So I make sure I don't speak that much. So that's got another funny thing. So here I'm like, oh, every time I speak, I bring a convicting word. It is just, I don't know why. It is what comes out of me. I don't think in any other way. I'm like, I don't know why. This is it. Because I know that, I'm like, our kids would die if I'm the only one speaking.
Totally.
Like if I'm the only one ministering, and there's sometimes where like I have felt the Lord on a very hard, convicting word that has really benefited the room and opened up the room. But I'll get off the stage and I know next week I can't be on that stage at all.
Yeah,
like
true.
at all. Like I have now I have so pruned what needed to be pruned. Next week, we need other things.
Yeah,
like
else.
there is other graces of watering and light and sowing seeds and all the other great things, because I have just pruned the plants that are growing. You have to be aware of that stuff and not feel bad about it or try to change. Like I hear a lot of maybe intenser people that are like, I'm just trying to change my intensity. And I'm like, don't change your intensity. Learn how to raise up people that are different.
Yeah, that's so good.
So that you can stay you, but your team gets the full picture of like, okay, God has other amazing attributes that you don't carry, that somebody else carries. So that kind of style, I don't know how we got on this tangent, but just team leading. It's I would go, that has guided me more than anything else, is just being okay with who I am, who I am not. I'm not trying to overcompensate for it. That also kills that fear of failure, because I'm not trying to do something that I'm not good at. I'm even like, here's another thing. I mean, I'm getting very vulnerable on this podcast, but you know, hopefully it'll help somebody out there. You'll get freed from trying to be all things that you're not called to be. So huge grace of the prophetic on my life. If we're going to do something prophetic, for sure, I'm going to be in that team because I love it. It flows so naturally out of me. Love that. If we're about to have an altar call for people getting saved, I have laughed with our team. I love giving. I will give altar calls all day long. I love leading people to the Lord. I am terrible at altar calls. Terrible. I've been raised by Tom Crandall. I'm like the man who's so good at it. I am so bad at it. Every time but I know how to present the gospel.
Yeah.
I don't have the grace that pulls people into it. So I can give a clear altar call gospel message. Nobody will respond. I get a Jordan Young, a Felipe, Dante, somebody that like carries this evangelistic heart.
Yeah.
They give the same one, or not even as clear.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, I just felt this thing over here. And it is like people responding. The kid that finally has come for 6 months, that never wants to give his life to the Lord, is weeping at the front. And I'm like, and this is why I don't do that. Now I will, if a kid's in front of me, man, I'm preaching the gospel. I'm leading him to the Lord. It's not an excuse not to do that.
Totally. Yeah.
But the grace sometimes, so even me, like I'll as a leader feel like, man, I really feel like in my prophetic, I feel like kids here don't know God. So then I go to somebody and I'm like, hey, you want to go and give an altar call? I don't feel like just because I get it, I need to give it.
Yeah, it's good.
Which is also really hard as a leader, because you feel so deeply things as a leader that you think the moment you feel it, you have to be the one to execute it.
Yeah. Sometimes for other people.
Yeah, so many times I will feel something and somebody else will execute.
Yeah.
I just feel it and I'm like, ooh, I really feel that.
Yep.
But you carry the grace, I don't.
Yeah. One of the things that I know my leader gets so upset with me when I do this, but I say sometimes I'll have words or I'll have things I know a person is dealing with, or I know they need prayer for, and I'll start walking towards them and I'll like hear a leader. Like I know like it's supposed to be for someone else. So I'll literally like turn and walk to someone else and be like, hey, go pray for that person. If you want to hit on that, that'd be a good thing to hit on. Absolutely. And every time they're like, can you come with me? Like, nope. You're going to do that. Go for it. But at the same time, it really is growing leaders. And I feel like even as a youth pastor, I know this is one of the things that most people we've had on here, these podcasts are like for students, or it's really for whoever, but a lot of times it's based for students. But I was like, I think this podcast, even before we started talking, I told my wife this, I was like, I think that this podcast is going to be specifically for leaders, whether that's youth pastors, leaders, any kind of leadership stuff. Because I feel like it's, again, you carry, I think, a lot of wisdom in those areas. But one of the things that when I first jumped on, that my dad was a youth pastor for 13 or 14 years or something like that. He did it for a while. And I asked him when I jumped on, I was like, hey, what's the thing that you feel like, if you were to look at your years of doing youth ministry, the thing that you felt like this was a thing I did that marked me as a leader, or was something that you just feel like you would give to someone else stepping into that? And his response was, he said, I would spend out all of my time with my youth leaders and none with the students. He said, that sounds really weird. He said, not that I don't want to hang out with the students and take them to coffee here and there, but he said, I know that if I pour into my leaders, and my goal is to grow leaders, that my youth team and my actual youth group will be healthy because my leaders are healthy, and I'm walking with them and I'm talking with them and that whole deal. And so I just felt like that was like such a crazy, like I would have never thought about that. I would have been, and honestly, it was, I think, of the grace of God that I think it was totally Holy Spirit that was like, ask him this, because I'm the kind of guy that would be like, I need to meet with every student and see how they're doing and take them to coffee and what can I do to help. Like that's who I was starting. And so when I got that, it was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like we are not, the goal isn't to build our youth group. The goal is to build our leaders so that they can do what the goal is, that why they're there, basically, what God has in there
so
for.
Good.
And so even for you, like I know I've gone a couple times now to your guys' youth group and just checked out what you guys did and how you guys ran stuff. And that was one of the things that I felt like was so cool, was like, even you guys do like prophetic, you guys did a prophetic word beforehand in your leader meeting, and just kind of like we're giving words. And then I think one of the points was like, everyone was just like wrecked as they were going out, but you were giving people, it was like, you were just there. You were just hanging out. And for me, it was like, I went to my youth group the following night, and it was so the opposite. I felt like I was not giving, and it wasn't because I didn't have people. It was just like, that was, again, one of my things that I'm the worst at, that I'm doing a lot better at now. But delegating, oh my goodness, man, I'm the worst delegator ever. It's horrible.
What I'll maybe it's a good thing you're a bad delegator, because I have learned something that I'll hit on here between delegating and empowering that I think has helped me a lot. Is delegating is you kind of assign tasks, but then people don't actually do them well.
Yeah.
Empowering, though, is you give power and responsibility to people to make the task amazing, but you don't tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
It is, again, it's very scary if you fear failure, but if you can get over the fear of failure, you will raise up a team that does things better than you.
Totally.
Because you're like, I would never have done that. If I delegated you, I would have put the confinements of my understanding, my creativity over you. But if I don't, and I just give you the power, authority, and the big goal, man, I just want this to feel like this.
Yeah.
And they have to come up with it. One, it raises up powerful leaders. One, you get the creativity level of other people. So I kind of been telling people, I'm like, it's okay that you're a bad delegator. Just don't be a bad empowerer.
Totally. Yeah.
Like that difference of like, there's a lot of people that are really good at delegating and they have very small people around them.
Yeah.
And you're like, your team, if you were gone, they don't know how to do anything.
Yep.
If I was gone, youth would function and go without a thought.
Yeah.
Multiple people could lead youth.
Yeah.
Like we're like, our bench is 6, 7, 8 people deep, where I could go, man, I have 3 rows of people that if all of us were out for something, we could run a successful youth service that would be powerful.
So good.
But that only happens when you, as a leader, allow the power to be distributed. So that way, when it is, people they're not afraid of it. They know how to utilize it and they know how to step into it. It's that difference, but it's very risky.
Yeah.
Because
it all goes back to the fear of failure.
Yes.
The fear of doing that.
Fear.
Like it's something that I feel like, out of all of the things that there are, I feel like that's something the enemy can use more than anything, because it's not I would say a sinful thing, but it's not like something you see right away as like an issue, right?
Yeah, no, you don't.
And it's almost like it's seen as like it's not seen as fear of failure. It's seen as like, no, like you said, you're being wise.
You're being wise.
You're showing wisdom right now. Why would you give that person that? They've never done it before when you can do it. And that makes more sense.
Yes.
But like it's hard, bro. It's so hard. We when I first got on, we had a whole new team come on. I think we recruited like 20 something people. It was like 20, a lot of people.
That is
it was like,
huge
I went
amount.
to everyone. I went to everyone.
Huge.
And well, again, I felt there was a lot of stuff going on. We had a huge youth group at the time. And when I tell you, I was so out of my element, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was just like, I have a lot of kids coming. We have no leaders. We had 3 leaders and I had like 150 kids coming every night.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And there were so many things going on that I was just like, I'm good at recruiting people. So I'm going to recruit everyone and then bring them on, and then we'll be good. And man, was I so wrong, because there's so many other things that go into that. Half the people weren't even there because they wanted to be there. It was just like, it was almost like I was calling in favors, and they were like, I guess I can be there on Thursday. So like we had all these people come, and I remember the first night, it was probably the second week that we had like that whole group of people there. That group had only been there for two Thursday nights. And I was leading worship. I did the game. I spoke. I did sound. I was doing everything. No one was doing anything. And so I jumped up, I played guitar. We had like somebody on cajon, someone singing, and then I like jumped off, and then I like had to run upstairs to change stuff. So I'm like telling people stuff as I'm walking upstairs. It was just this whole thing.
This is so good.
It was the worst.
Wish I would have been there to see
Oh,
this.
it was the worst. Well, here's the craziest thing. After the meeting, I have like probably 7 leaders. They're like, hey, can I talk to you after? I'm like, yeah, sure. And it's a busy night. So I'm like, if you can stay for me to do all this stuff, close up and everything. So I close up, and one by one, they would come in, and every one of them, hey, so I feel like you don't need me here. I feel like I'm just here. You're not giving me anything. And I love that you asked me to come, but I just don't feel like this is for me right now. Gone. Next person.
Yeah.
Hey, I love being here. Thanks for having me, come out, but it doesn't seem like you need me, so I'm not. Like 7 people. Next week, same thing. Almost everyone's gone. To where we're down like the last 3 again. And I just remember being so like discouraged, because I was like, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm trying to make everything so exciting, and I'm trying to make it to where people are excited to come and they want to be here and it's hype. But in reality, it was like there's no lasting fruit. It was just me trying to bring the fire for that night, and then I'm just burnt out, and the whole week just like, what am I doing? And it was the absolute worst. It was the worst. But in that time, like, it's crazy how like in those times, like, God allowed me to like learn so much through those difficult things. And so like now it's like that's why I said, do you hear this, Chloe? Because she runs our worship team. And the amount of times where she'll come in, and now I'm just like, you're the person. Why are you asking me questions? Go for it. Which before I would not have been able to do, because I genuinely would have been like, she needs help right now, and I need to help and put my fingerprint on it, or I need to like somehow coordinate or help, instead of looking at it in a way of like, no, I
trust you.
You got this. You're good.
It's that thing of trust that we say trust is the foundation of every relationship, but people don't like that in leadership.
Dang. Yep.
And I don't get it. I'm like, trust is the bedrock for every relationship in your life. Yep. But in leadership, we're like, I don't want to trust you.
Yeah, true.
I want to have you do it exactly how I want it done.
Yep.
And it limits an environment. And I think it's why too many times we have people getting hurt by church environments, because at one level we're like, Jesus has set you free, step into who he's called you to be. And then in the very next statement, we're like, oh, and by the way, to be a leader, you have to form in this mold. And so you're like, this is like conflicting messaging. At one phase, we're like, man, God creates, look at how many gifts are in the Bible. Look at how many things. Man, what's in your heart? God wants you to actually put your hand to it and go. But also in leadership, this is what leadership is. Yep. And it's like, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And I try to break that at every level. And I think what helps is I do come from a house where like we have a Bill Johnson who he goes after beliefs being the same, not expressions. Yeah. And that's the difference is I'm like, yes, I want the same beliefs. So for my team, I go after beliefs when I'm having leaders join my team. What are your beliefs? I don't care the expression. I don't care if your expression is this, that, whatever. I care what the beliefs are that you operate out of. So because that's harder to change. But expressions, I don't actually care. Express yourself. Be wild. Do something that I would never do.
Yeah.
because then there's going to be kids. I think it's why we've been able to sustain and grow a very large youth ministry, because different kids can find themselves in different leaders.
So good. Yeah.
Because nobody actually knows the leadership style of Young Saints, because there isn't one.
Yeah.
There's the leadership values. There's the leadership beliefs. There's not a leadership style.
Yeah. That's
and
so
that
good.
is so freeing. There's not even a communication style. I even tell people, please don't communicate the same way I do. There's one of me. There only needs to be one.
Yeah.
I need other people.
Yep.
But I'm aware of that. It goes back to I'm aware as a leader of
Yeah.
what I carry. And so I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with what I don't carry.
Yeah. That's so good, man.
And so
What do you feel like as a leader, pastor, whatever, I mean, in any area of leadership or in youth ministry, what do you feel like is the biggest, I would say almost the thing that you see that you're like the most scared of, even whether it's a cultural thing or a thing that you've seen as a church
where
that
we're heading.
Yeah, like in today's
Yep.
age, because I know, again, we just had a conversation about this. Like, I feel like, when my parents were in high school, when I was in high school, it's all been different, right? There's a big difference when my parents were in high school, not when I was in high school. But I was in high school, which now it feels like forever ago. But I was I was senior 8 years ago. In that 8-year span of me being in high school and me not being in high school, everything's changed in so many areas.
Yep.
Not just in high school, but in social media and in the
Life.
church and
Yep.
in youth and in all of the stuff. And so for you, what's something, and even whether it's in youth, whether it's in youth leadership.
Can I answer this in a weird way, and then you tell me afterwards if you're like, I don't know if this is the right answer?
100%,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna take this maybe a way different direction,
Yeah.
because I was thinking about this, and it's a thought I've been pondering.
Yeah.
Because obviously, the classic answer, everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's social media. Oh my gosh, it's technology. Oh my gosh, and now it's gender confusion. Oh my gosh, there's all these things that are so scary, and everything is so scary. And now there's these new things. And I'm like, I'm probably maybe the one youth pastor that's like, I don't know. Darkness has been darkness forever. Like, it's different roles, but it's all been dark.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's that. So I'm like,
Totally.
either I can go, oh, this is what I'm concerned about. I think I have a different concern that I'm seeing happening in youth pastors and youth ministry, that I would go, this is causing a lot more issues than all of those things. And we've course corrected it. And as we've been course correcting it, the amount of fruit that I'm seeing is dramatically different in our youth and families. And it's a principle that Bill talked actually about where you minister. And he said, a lot of people, he associated this with reaching poverty and homeless people. And he said, sometimes when you reach, if you have a heart for the poor, you can accidentally pick up the offense of the very people you're ministering to. And then without realizing it, you hate the rich. And you've actually now added to the very disconnection that you were trying to solve. So now you're creating, God gave us the ministry of reconciliation, and you're creating a disconnect through ministry. So I hearing that concept, and it's been rolling through my mind, and I was like, one day I'm at youth, and it clicks, and I'm like, oh my gosh, youth pastors pick up the offense of a kid towards parents. This is why youth pastors and parents there seems to be this constant divide where we're always like, oh, if only our parents. Man, I see a kid, we fight for the kids so much, but they still go home to this home. And we pick up an offense, and we almost create a stronger disconnection in the very place that a kid needs to find healing.
So good. Yeah.
And so when I look out, and so we started course correcting this, I was like, guys, where are we adding to any disconnection between kids and parents? Because if we can solve the family unit, you get a stronger kid.
Yeah.
You get a longevity in a kid. You get, we don't have kids running away from home. We don't
Healing
have kids
in family.
healing in family.
All that,
I'm
yeah.
like, if we solve that, all these other scary things seem to go away.
Yeah.
You don't have kids checking out and doing stupid stuff on weekends when they're connected at home. You don't have kids making crazy decisions with friends when they're connected with home.
Yeah.
You have a lot more safety nets. And I'm like, are we adding to this unintentionally? And when we just started adjusting, I was like, we're not youth pastors, we're family pastors. I said, everyone's going to start saying that. We're not youth leaders, we're family leaders. We're helping the family unit stay connected in a very pivotal part of life where kids are having a lot of emotions, are finding their independence, but we need to keep them connected to parents. Even if parents are causing some of these issues.
Yeah.
We have to fight for those parents. We have to learn to influence those parents. We have to prophesy over those parents. Don't just drop a kid off at home and say, wow, I won at night. Drop a kid off at home and prophesy to the parents and gain trust with the parents to reconcile.
Yeah.
Doing this and praying into it, we have seen such dramatic shifts already with kids and parents. Dramatic shifts. It has been shocking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I became that leader that accidentally picked up the offense. And here I am going, oh my gosh, what do I see? What's causing all of Gen Z to struggle? Oh, what are we going to do with Alpha? Oh my gosh, what? And I'm like, well, what's the basic thing that God set up to prevent all of this?
Yeah.
Family. How am I aiding to that coming back together? And if I'm not, and I'm creating a divide, I'm actually causing problems, even if I'm trying to reach a kid.
Yeah, that's so good. Dang.
Like even I've been going after now for months. I feel it. Okay, how many guys are having struggle with family? We need to pray over you. What is happening in family? Stand up. Man, we're going to pray over you. I had a girl come up to me last night just weeping. And she was like, Rory, she told me something she's never told anybody, me and this other girl leader that she trusts. And it was all about family. She goes, I have not felt safe to tell anybody, but for the last 8 months, you keep bringing up that God loves families. And I finally want to tell you, I think he must love mine. I want to tell you what's happening in mine. Do you think God would intervene?
Dang.
Has been totally separated, struggling, connecting instantly. Had one moment, and she was so scared, in tears, telling me something she's never told anybody that's going on. And that is not an uncommon testimony as of late, as we've changed how we're doing this.
Yeah.
And going, God is after, he created family unit. Heaven is based out of family. Kids have longevity in the Christian life when they're connected with family.
Yeah.
We get a breakdown when they start getting outside of that. All the struggles right now in culture where we're seeing people not want to get married, people not want to have kids, people, same-sex marriages and attractions, and all these things happening, and affairs and cohabitations and blah. I'm like, what is that? Well, if you ask any of those people, a lot of them came from very dysfunctional families.
Yep.
And they're going, I never want to recreate my family, so I'm okay trying something different because my family, I still can't get in a room with them. Yeah. We still can't all come together. Oh, they're all saved. Yeah. And I'm like, bummer. So the Christian experience to you is a divided family. What can we do if we can solve that? And it's not the fun, pretty stuff. It's very messy because you're like, wow, I have to love a parent as much as I love a student. I have to hear a student tell me their parent yelled at them. I have to be yelled at by a parent and still go, you love your kid so much. That's why you're yelling at me.
Yeah. Because
you love your kid that much and you're so scared. Okay. Whew, I've heard all the offense of the kid. Wow, I just got an email where you just cussed me out, and I don't know why you would just cuss me out because this happens often.
Yep.
Wait, you're so scared. Okay, I'm going to call you. Hey, are you scared? Man, I'm scared for your son too. Can we pray? I'm for you.
Yeah.
It has changed dramatically how I lead and how our leaders lead, parents and students. And it has changed the experience parents are having with our youth ministry, where there's so much more buy-in and a wall of protection around us that when somebody has a bad experience, I can tell the dialogue doesn't, like, it's not like a wildfire anymore. It's not like, oh my gosh, the youth department. Oh, let me tell you my experience. It's different.
Yeah.
Because parents are like, no, that's not my experience, because they actually called. Like if we have a problem with a kid or kid says something, right away we're walking right out to the car, stopping the parent and praying with them.
Yep.
Not telling them what happened always. Praying with them first. Even I was telling, there was a kid that opened up some pretty rough stuff a couple weeks ago that they were doing. And I knew, I was like, this is going to freak a parent out. Like, I get it. This would freak me out. So I told the leader, I said, if you're going to succeed, you need to get the parent on the same framework that we are on.
Yeah.
And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, so when you meet with this parent, you tell them how amazing they are as a parent to raise such a brave daughter.
Yeah.
They go, what do you mean? And I said, well, it took so much bravery for her to confess all that stuff to you. So you don't start with the confession. Start with how brave. Say, I just want to tell you, as a mom, you're such an incredible mom because you've raised a daughter that is so brave, that took one of the biggest risks of her life right now to open up something. And I just first want to say thank you for being that kind of parent that would raise such an amazing daughter.
Yeah.
What is that parent going to do? Okay, I'm about to hear some big information, but also thank you because now I don't feel insecure that you think I'm a bad parent.
That's so good.
Thank you for easing my fear because, hey, I don't think you're a bad parent. Kids make really crazy decisions and sometimes it has nothing to do with you at home. It just happens. You know, bad company, bad friend, whatever. But I need you to realize, like, I don't think that any of this has to do with you. I actually need you on our side. We actually need to come together. Hey, and I wanted to come because she's about to share some stuff and I wanted all of us to pray together. Can you pray too? I'm not the one praying. This is your daughter. I need you to pray.
Yeah.
Very hard to get very angry at your kid after you feel validated, believed in, you're praying for your, and you're setting it up to where before the parent can go, we're going to go talk at home. That conversation, we're not even there because I've set up a whole different conversation to happen.
Yep.
To where parents like, okay, I can't tell you how many times I've done this now. And it is like incredible, the fruit.
That's so good.
Kid is still confessing. There's still stuff that has to get worked out with the parent and kid, but a totally different response as we go that way.
Yeah.
So I think as I look at youth ministry, and I would say if there's something that we need to change, it is youth pastors isolating kids from parents and thinking parents are against them. And hear me, yes, I have been cussed out by parents many of times, multiple times. And they're big leaders in our church and big, you know, I get it. And sometimes they're business people in our city and they're known and everyone's like, they're so amazing. I'm like, oh yeah, they are amazing, but wow, they can pack a punch. Man, you haven't heard them yet, man. Get them on the phone, freak them out, you know?
Dude,
I get it. Yep. So it's not that I'm, it happens. It happened this year already multiple times. Like I'm like, we get it all the time. But the more I have not let that impact again go, I haven't picked up the offense.
So good.
So as I stay unoffendable, I can actually create the change I want to create to go, oh, this is what we need to change. If we need to change something, let's change that. This is why we took away Sunday schools. I in 2018 said, hey, Dan, I want to remove Sunday schools. And Dan Fairley was like, what? And I said, I think Sunday schools are making kids walk away from church. I said, I don't think it's college. And he was like, what? And I said, just hear me out. For 4 years, in their pivotal time of independence, we tell them they're not old enough to be with their parents, to be in church. So then they graduate Young Saints. I'm their only pastor. And I tell them they can't come back anymore. So what happens? They don't know where to go to church. So they leave the church. And what's crazy is we stopped that. I don't even, junior high is in there. And I said, in junior high and high school, they need to see their parents worshiping. I said, parents, you need to be worshiping, bring your Bible, take notes. If you want kids to take notes and bring their Bible, bring your Bible and take notes to church. It's not my job to tell them, it's your job.
So good.
It's not my job to tell them to worship, it's your job. Show them how you worship. It has changed the family dynamic. There's kids now in every service. All of our graduating seniors are in services consistently. Like the last 3 classes, I see them still in church that are around. And they've found their place in the community. And I wasn't responsible for like a youth section, this. I'm like, no. Family. You're with your parents. It like the minor adjustments to create family experiences has drastically changed how our kids engage with God. And the strength of our kids that we get. So.
That's so good. I know we had it was a husband and a wife that were older. They had, you know, a bunch of kids and they do, their whole thing is they travel all around the world and talk about marriage and raising kids and the whole deal. And one of the things that they talk about that for me and my wife even listening to this was like, wow, this is crazy, was they talk about how it's healthy as, and again, even in the context of like leaders and parents, you know, being there, but as a husband and a wife, having arguments in front of your in front of your kids is not a bad thing, as long as they're healthy, right? And you're handling yourself in the right way. But they said one of the things is if let's say a husband handles a kid, right, disciplines them in a way where the mom doesn't agree, instead of the mom shutting it down and saying, do not do that, that is not okay, right? And I know in some contexts it's different, but in most ways, if they shut them down right there and say, it's not okay, right away the kid sees that as like there's dysfunction there, they're not right? And it's almost a way for the enemy to sneak in and be like, look at your parent, they're disagreeing and they're off. And so even with leaders and parents, I feel like that is such a crazy thing where it's like when you have a kid that is like being like, as a leader, I'm for your parents. I know they're not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But
it's been my catchphrase. I'm like, I literally been telling leaders, hey, I'm going to disappoint you and you're going to disappoint me. So if we can get over that, we're going to have a lot better time in leadership. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, I need you to know. Yeah. I tell kids that. I'm like, if I'm going to disciple you, I'm going to disappoint you.
Yeah.
And you're going to disappoint me.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing. And they're like, what? I'm like, so now that we've gotten rid of the craziest thing, can we move on with our relationship and realize we're not perfect?
So good, man. So good.
But it's real. You talk to, if a kid feels like you are on their side and their sides, you've lost.
Yeah.
Because a kid stops trusting their parents, and that is a recipe for a kid walking away from God in the future. Yeah. No matter how great you are as a youth pastor, you could think you're so good and they're so dysfunctional. Even the most dysfunctional parents, if a kid can stay connected and learn how to do that, they will stay the course. Yeah. It is crazy.
So good.
So
dang. So good. All right.
Fun.
Last question, and then we'll wrap this thing up. I know you said you're a ponderer for months and months at a time.
I'm a ponderer.
So this question might be kind of interesting. But what is your current, what's a revelation that you feel like you've got most recently, that you feel like it could be something that you're walking through right now, pondering, whatever that is? What's something you feel like you just got hit with this revelation? Is there something that you got
this
right
has
now?
Been the thing I've been pondering. Now you're gonna laugh because it started 3 years ago, but I'm pondering it. But it is recent that I'm like applying it. So this is also the recent where I'm starting to see fruit and traction with it. So 3 years ago, me and my wife sat down and I was like, hey, we have gotten the same prophetic words for a decade and none of them are coming true. What is happening?
Yeah.
And we were kind of like getting discouraged. We're like, why am I getting the same prophetic words verbatim?
Yeah.
And for a moment, I was like, oh, God's trying to validate.
Yeah.
And then I had the thought that kind of scared me. I thought, wait, if I have to tell my kid the same thing over and over, that means my kid's not listening. It doesn't mean that it's more significant.
Yeah.
Okay, God, what are we not listening? Why are we not listening? Like, this isn't a good thing then that we're getting the same prophetic word. That doesn't mean that's good. That doesn't mean, wow, God's really highlighting it. That means I'm not listening.
Yeah.
And it's the same one. So now I'm thinking about this and I'm like, huh. So I hear a message from Daniel McCullum on warring with your words. And I think, I don't know. What am I not doing? And so this has led me to the most recent revelation that I've started doing. And as me and my wife have been doing it, one, words have been starting to happen within 6 to 8 months of us getting them. We're getting different words now that are opening up different things that feel so unrealistic. And then they happen. And I'm like, this is impossible. I don't know how this happened.
Yeah.
And it comes out of Ezekiel 37 that I got this like thing that I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And reading the Valley of Dry Bones, I was like, how weird. God, you spoke to Ezekiel in the valley and nothing happened when you spoke. Wait, I thought that when God, when he speaks, he creates, which he does. And everything's possible. And once you get the voice of the Lord, that is it. It's going to manifest. And yet, in all of the prophets, God speaks and nothing happens until a prophet declares it.
Interesting. Yeah.
That God speaks and nothing happened. And then Ezekiel had to declare the same word to the dry bones and then it started happening.
Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like the talents. I get a prophetic word and I'm burying it in the ground in the name of God. One day you're going to make this happen. God, one day you're going to make this happen. And then I realized that's not it. And there's a verse in I think it's 1 Timothy I want to say it's 4:12, but I could be wrong on that. It's in 1 Timothy. And it talks about when Paul says, Timothy, fight the good fight of faith with your prophetic words, and you take the prophecies previously spoken against you, and you fight the good fight of faith, keeping a good conscience, unlike what others have done who have shipwrecked their faith. So you have to think, you're like, wait, so Timothy, remember the prophecies and use the prophecies to fight, to gain faith and keep a good conscience. But people that haven't done that, they've actually shipwrecked their faith. And I started realizing, so then this next thing popped into my head. I was like, how is most of the church disappointed in God? I don't understand that. We have a God that gave everything, that literally sacrificed his life, that gives us new life, hope and a future, an eternal dwelling place, the glory of God, and most of the church is disappointed.
Yep.
Well, how are we so disappointed? Where did we get off? And it came back to prophetic words. I'm like, oh, we've idolized prophetic words, and we think the moment we get one, oh, that does something. I'm more spiritual. Like, it's going to happen. And then when it doesn't, we blame God and we get disillusioned. We're like, oh, yeah, this encounters these words, they don't do anything. And I realized every encounter and every prophetic word is setting me up to have more faith in who God is and to declare what he's actually saying over the earth and over my life right now. And I have to partner with it. And as I do, it manifests and it builds my faith. If I don't, it's like I buried it. And he's going to say, man, you wicked servant, I gave you something and you did nothing with it. The moment me and my wife started doing this, and it was weird, crazy words. Like, here's one of them. Like, this is how crazy the journey has been, where it went from like, oh my gosh, I've stewarded words my whole life. I've had journals and Google Docs, and I've read them, but I've never prayed them and declared them. I've read them. I've looked at them, but I've never believed them. I've never gone, wait, God, if you said this, then it must be true. Yeah. And this is when we started doing it. So we got this word that said, I see passports and stamps and nations, and you're about to start traveling to nations, and get ready. And all this stuff's about to open up. And me and Mari started laughing because I'm like such an introvert. Flights, I don't like airplanes, don't like traveling.
Yeah.
The whole experience. I'm like, if I never had to travel again, I'd be fine. Love my house, love home. We are such homebodies. My wife laughed. Her passport's been expired for like 6 or 7 years at this point. She hasn't left the country in like 13 years.
Yeah.
We're like not those people.
Not the people. Yeah.
Like, not it. Yeah. And I'm like, and we get this word and I'm like, okay, what? Like, I don't even like traveling. Like, what? You know, everybody thinks everyone likes to travel. We don't. I'm like, not it. That's just not me.
Yeah.
So I think, do I believe this word? Okay, we've been learning this thing. Okay, because this is in the end of 2022, we get this word.
Yeah.
So it's been a year that we're pondering this thought. So I just start praying it and declaring it. I look at my wife and I'm like, we're going to get a passport for you. She goes, okay. So we get a passport for her. As we're getting the passport, and we just start declaring, we are supposed to travel to nations. God, I thank you that you're calling our family to travel, that you're going to stretch us, that there's going to be grace. Instantly, she's been in 3 different nations in this next month. By this next month, from that time, is invited by randomly to 3 different nations. We've started traveling all over to different things. We don't even do this.
Yeah.
And it started literally within a month of that word. We started getting the passport, got invited to Australia. Never been to Australia, nothing. And it started this whole thing opening up. But the difference was me and her started to declare it and we talk about it. And I was like, okay, so this is us. And she'd be like, I don't feel like this is us. I'm like, I know, me neither. But I have to pray this like it is, which is really hard to do.
Yep.
But then when I read Ezekiel, I'm like, Ezekiel's looking at dead bones and God gives him a word and it feels impossible. And Ezekiel has to go, well, I guess, God, you know that this is possible, so I will declare it as if it is.
Yeah.
So many of us are having words that we're not declaring, and then we get disillusioned by them and disappointed. And we're almost blaming God. We're like, God, when are these words going to come to pass? And I'm like, when in his message, he said, within 2 years, you should start seeing the seeds grow into small trees of your words. Within 2 years, you should start seeing them in your garden. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's been a decade. I haven't seen any of this because I'm not partnering.
Yep. So good.
And we've even started this over young saints in this last year. I just started taking words, and our whole team prays and declares certain words. And it has been crazy, the increase of testimonies and grace available as we declare these words, and we're like believing them as if they are like, this is what God says about us. This is what we expect. And it has increased the faith in our environment. So we're seeing it. And I do less now, and I'm seeing more fruit as I'm focusing on these words. Like I focus more now on praying and declaring these words, and stuff is happening that I'm like, I could have never made that happen if I would have like strategically planned this.
Yeah.
If we would have taken all of our energy and intentionally gone, how are we going to make this happen? We couldn't have made it happen close to what's happening at the level it's happening. And all we're doing is just taking a word and declaring it and fighting the good fight of faith. So I would say this is what I'm pondering, and I'm going, whatever words or encounters you have been given, don't just go, oh, cool. Guess I feel spiritual about it. Oh, okay, God. Oh, good. I feel connected with you. They're not to connect us. They're weapons that we use, that God's going, hey, I'm going to give you a weapon to use. Now you can choose how you want to use it. So many of us just bury them. And then we get mad at God, and we're like, man, God, we're just one day, we're hoping revival is going to come. Yeah. We got a word 40 years ago. And I'm like, that's weird. God's heart is for all to be saved. Okay, we're not declaring something. If we got the word, something isn't aligning, and we've actually gotten disillusioned by this word or encounter, and deep down we're disappointed that God isn't coming through. And I'm like, if we have the God of living hope, the God of all hope living inside of us, how are we so disappointed as a church?
Yeah.
And I think we're so disappointed because we've idolized words. We think that they are promises that are just going to happen, and we don't play any role in them. And really nothing in our Christian life is done outside of faith. So why would words and encounters not lead us to go, okay, this is what God is saying, so by faith I step into it?
Yeah.
Not out of hype, out of faith. And you know it's faith because you're like, I feel like there's no way I can make this happen. Like I can't position myself to make this happen. Like we get a word, you're about to start seeing family reconciliation. This is a word we got a couple of years ago. We're seeing none of it. And I'm like, this word is bothering me. We start declaring it instantly. It has been like mass amounts of like parents out of nowhere reconciling with kids out of nowhere, like vulnerably opening up to parents, like so much happening in homes. And I'm like, I couldn't strategize enough for this to happen.
Yeah. So good.
I'm just finally using the things that God has given us, and I'm not getting disappointed by them or making them idols.
Yeah.
So there would be what I'm thinking about. So review your words and review your encounters, and then ask the Holy Spirit, how do I need to partner with this and declare it in faith consistently as if it's already happening? Like I'm so confident that I'm going, I already would tell you it's happening even though we've never seen it happen once. But I already know this is what's been said. It's Isaiah 55. When a word comes out from the mouth of God, it will accomplish all it has been sent forth to do. It will not return empty or void. If it is a word from God and you utilize it and you declare it, it will produce fruit and you don't have to do anything. You're just waiting. You're like, oh, I'm just watching the harvest because I'm partnering with the power of a word by faith. But it has to be authentic. You have to go, I believe it.
Yeah.
100%. There it is. There's my pondering.
So good.
So good.
So good, dude.
This is fun. I like
thank
this.
You for coming on, bro.
Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. I don't know. Where are we at, Alex?
We're at a little bit 9 or hour 9.
Hour 9?
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
Yeah.
I texted like 15 minutes ago.
Did you?
Congratulations
Yeah,
for everybody that stayed through this.
for real. No,
You guys are
I'm
heroes.
sure. Honestly, it's been gold nuggets,
Heroes.
gold nuggets all through. Dude, thanks for coming on, bro. It's been so awesome having you. We got to do another one. We got
to do another one. Let's do it.
I'm down, bro.
I'd
You
be
come
honored.
whenever.
Dude,
you
let me know. We'll
Dude,
plan it.
That one. Any of these? Do you have anything going on? Anything you want to promote? Anything at all?
Oh my gosh. The only thing is I built a website, RoryandMari.com. I did it. I wanted to do it. I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I researched and I created it. So check out RoryandMari.com. You can find us there, kind of connect with us more, which is really exciting. And then, and if you want to learn more about empowerment, because I love empowerment, I created an e-course on the culture of empowerment because I get so many questions on how to empower leaders that I talk about it now and share my journey and how I get that belief inside of me. So I know, how do I start that process to actually empower people around me and not just be like a good idea, but an idea that you can see in your leadership. So good. You can check that out.
That's all on your website.
RoryandMari.com.
Sweet.
Yeah.
RoryMari.com. Dude, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
It's been so awesome. We'll see you guys whenever we see you guys again.
Whenever we see you again.
Boom.